Hey guys, this is the second part of lesson 3.5, which is solving quadratic equations by completing the square. I'm just letting you know I'm going to pop off the screen a couple times because I've tried this recording a few times and for some reason it hasn't been working. So just want to verify that it continues to work. So this section is about solving equations with with a coefficient other than 1. So that means the coefficient of the x squared term is not 1. We're looking at like this guy right here and this guy right here. So if that's not 1, it's done very similarly, but there's like one extra step that kind of requires like a second step in the solving process. So we will start off the same, where we go plus 48 on both sides. And you get 2x squared minus 4x, leave a gap, equals 48. Okay, so that's just like usual. This next step is what's different. So because we have this 2 out front, we're going to pull that out front and kind of factor it out, I guess is the mathematical phrase. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, so we have just x squared. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, so we have negative 2x. Close that parentheses, still equals 48. So I'm going to highlight this just so you understand that this is like the additional step in the beginning that's required when we have a coefficient other than 1. From here, we're going to do the same thing as we have been doing, where we pull off the b value and we go negative 2 divided by 2 squared, which is negative 1, squared, which is 1. So here we're going to add in a 1, but this is where you got to be a little bit cautious. So we've technically added 2 to this side because we have 2 times 1. That's what that statement says, 2 times everything inside. So technically, to keep it even, on the other side, we need to add in 2, not 1. Okay? So just be really cautious about that. We're adding in 2 because it's technically double. Then we can go ahead and factor like usual. So it'll be x, and then we use this guy right here, minus 1 squared equals 50. And here's where we have like one extra step too because of that unfortunate 2 as a coefficient. You're going to need to divide by 2 on both sides to get rid of that. So this I'll highlight as well so that you know it's related. So this step is because of this highlighted step up here. So then we end up with x minus 1 squared equals 25. And you would do your square root, and you would have x minus 1 equals, I'm going to move that over a little bit, x minus 1 equals 5, and x minus 1 equals negative 5. And then we'll solve. So plus 1, x is 6, plus 1, x is negative 4. So maybe you guys could try to pause the video, see if you want to give this second one a shot by yourself. And then you can come back and check the video once you're done. So the coefficient here is 3, so that means we're going to have an extra step. So we're going to start the same though by subtracting 27 on both sides. So we'll have 3x squared plus 24x, leave a gap, equals negative 27. Now here's where we have that extra little step, unfortunately. So we'll pull the 3 out front, and what we're going to be left with is x squared. 3 divided by 3 is 1, x squared. 24 divided by 3 is 8x. Leave a gap, equals negative 27. Now we got to figure out what we're adding. So we're going to go 8 divided by 2 squared equals 4 squared, which equals 16. So we're going to add 16 here. But we did not add 16. How much did we actually add to the left side? We actually added 3 times 16, which is huge. It's actually 48. So technically on the left, we added 48 just sneakily. So we're going to add 48 to this side as well. So over here, when we factor, we're going to go 3 times x, and then we use this guy inside, equals negative 27 plus 48 is actually 21. And then what we have to do is this extra step of divide by 3, divide by 3. So what we end up with is x plus 4 squared equals 7. And then you square root, square root. This one's a little weird because the square root of 7 is trash. So I would just leave it as the square root of 7 and negative square root of 7. And then solve, minus 4, minus 4. So I always write this negative 4 plus root 7, and I'll show you why in just a second. And then over here, I would write it as x equals negative 4 minus square root of 7. Here's why. Some of my students will go like this, and then they think, oh, that's 3, okay. And they go square root of 3, cool, cool, cool. But no, that's not actually what it is. So I always put the normal number out front, okay? I also have my students write 2 solutions like this. I know that some teachers would have you maybe write like x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 7. It puts them together into one statement, but I prefer my students to keep it in 2 separate just because it ensures that they remember there are 2 solutions there. So I'll say that again. I like them to write it separate because then I know that they're aware that it's 2 separate solutions. Okay, good. Still recording, still recording. All right, and then our last one is if we have an imaginary solution. So generally, when you're doing a test or doing homework, it's not going to tell you, hey, you're going to have imaginary solutions. This is just what you do, like if that happens. So you started off the same, minus 11. You get x squared plus 4x, leave a gap, equals negative 11. You take this guy and you go 4 over 2 squared equals 2 squared, which is 4. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. And then we can factor. So we're going to go x, and then this is a positive 2, so plus 2 squared equals negative 7. If you get to this point where you're down to the next step being square root, this is when you know you're going to have an imaginary solution. So this is what I do in math classes. I would take notes like, hey, this is the point where I know it's going to be an imaginary solution. You don't need to memorize that, but it just might be helpful to you guys as you solve. So then you square root and square root. Here's how you know, even if you don't remember this part, here's how you will know. You'll end up with x plus 2 equals the square root of negative 7. But if you do square root of negative 7, as you can see up there already, I'll just show you what it says though. It'll say non-real answer. So that means the opposite of non-real is imaginary. It's going to give you an imaginary solution. So you're going to have I square root 7 and negative I square root 7. Then you're going to minus 2, x equals negative 2 plus I root 7, and then minus 2, x equals negative 2 minus I root 7. Again, I like 2 separate ones to make sure people know there's 2, but some teachers like you to go plus or minus I root 7 as one statement.